we'll get your reaction to that story in a moment. Stephen, first to you, this terrible story out of Gaza, an Australian aid worker among those killed in an airstrike, apparently. We're yet to get confirmation from the authorities, but sadly it looks like one Australian aid worker was killed in this.
Well, look, Australian aid worker being killed doing an incredibly brave job is a tragedy, and to the families, if that's confirmed, everyone in Australia's heart will go out to them, and to the other aid workers that potentially have been injured as well. I mean, it is an extraordinarily courageous thing to be an aid worker in a serious war zone like you're seeing in Gaza, which gives even more strength for the cause from all that there should be a ceasefire, that both parties need to sit down. There's been a number of peace proposals on the table over the last few weeks. There's suggestions there could be a further negotiation as soon as this weekend. This is to be supported, but to be very clear, the outrageous and heinous strike by Hamas a few months back, Israel are entitled to pursue their safety of their people. We want to see it done in accordance with the rules of war. We want to see it done appropriately with minimum casualties, which just highlights the dangers for those poor aid workers, not just the 3 that may have been killed or 4 that may have been killed, but right across the Gaza Strip.
Michael, on this statement we received from the Israeli Defence Force, they've said that they're at the highest level reviewing what's gone on here in this tragic incident, and they've made clear the IDF makes extensive efforts to enable the safe delivery of aid and has worked closely with the World Central Kitchen charity, this group, in terms of, as the IDF calls it, its vital efforts to provide food and aid to the people of Gaza. So that's another element to this tragedy, is that the IDF themselves have said they're working closely with that charity, but clearly something has gone terribly wrong in this scenario.
Yeah, an absolute tragedy that this person who's volunteering or getting paid little in a war zone has been killed. It's a great tragedy for the person, obviously their family, and our hearts go out to that family, and also the families of any other innocent person killed in Gaza or any war zone. But Stephen's right. You get back to the central problem, which is what is the government in Gaza doing about food aid? What is the government in Gaza doing about providing housing? They're hiding in tunnels. This is the problem, that the focus is on Israel, when in fact the culprit here is the terrorist organisation which has wreaked so much damage in Gaza and elsewhere in Israel and the West Bank. The fact that these people are still there, haven't surrendered, use humans as human shields. This is the appalling story of what's happening in Gaza, this terrorist organisation that as many others have said, that revels in deaths of human shields because it creates outrage against Israel, etc., etc. But yeah, great tragedy, and let's hope there aren't any more, but in the war zone there will be, Kieran, unfortunately.
Stephen, on to this major announcement from the Prime Minister, $1 billion commitment. I should make a declaration. You're on the board of Rheinmetall's Australian outfit, so you do wear that cap as well, but you're obviously welcoming today.
Yeah, look, this is a big day for Rheinmetall, but also a big day for Australian industry capability. I mean, what this government continues to strive for is to ensure that we have sovereign capability. Our region has become more unsettled. Our region faces the greatest challenges in 30, 40, 50 years. We have to have a capacity that if our supply lines are disrupted, from whether it's from Europe or from the US, and there is increasing ability to do that in a kinetic sense as well as in a cyber sense, we have to have the capability to defend Australia's shores. We have to project force, and this is part of this government's commitment to ensure that Australia is ready and able and willing if needed, to defend our shores. Hopefully none of this ever is needed, but the sort of capability we're seeing announced today, the export order, which ensures that the 600, 800 jobs will have an ongoing role. It is a hard facility. I've seen some commentary about Lego. I've been there. And I think you'll see from the pictures today that this is not Lego. This is genuine work. Genuine metal is bent. It is soldered. It is an actual genuine factory that's quite extraordinary for the Germans who have done it here in Australia.
And I spoke to retired Major General Gus McLaughlin earlier, Michael. Gus was saying that this is one of the best facilities, if not the best facilities, making military armoured vehicles anywhere in the world.
Yeah, I saw that, and this is great news. And congratulations, Stephen, if you've played any part in this. These are real jobs. This is real profit. This is, very good news for Australia. Very good news also internationally that, Germany, who are an important member of the EU, are buying defence equipment from Australia. We all know that NATO countries are under pressure for all the reasons we know. And the fact that Germany is buying this military equipment from Australia is terrific news. So, Stephen, no doubt you played a part in this, and a big pat on the back to you, my friend. Big pat on the back.
Well, let's take it a bit more political now and look at the political equation right now. We've spoken about the strategic and defence and all of that, very noble and worthwhile discussion. But on the politics of it, Stephen, Queensland looked like it had improved a bit in terms of the equation for Labor, although WA lost a bit of paint in recent times, according to the Newspoll analysis this week. What was your read on all of that?
Look, I think that's consistent. I mean, part of the problem when you take just a straight national aggregated together, it doesn't give you a picture of what's happening in the different states. And you see a number that shows Labor has dropped, but it doesn't necessarily mean that Labor is losing any seats in Queensland or holding all its seats in Western Australia. And what that disaggregation showed you was that Labor, while not winning 5 seats in Queensland, are not in as a dire position where it needs to win seats. Clearly, we're at a high watermark in Western Australia. I mean, I would, in my heart of hearts, I want to hold every single one of those. It will be hard. The Western Australian state governments ran a magnificent COVID policy that was thoroughly supported by 80% of Western Australians, whether the East Coast liked it or not. And Labor drove that, and it cost the Liberal government at the time 4 seats by their stupidity backing a High Court challenge of Clive Palmer. So that disaggregation gives you a much better picture of the challenges Labor faces if it wants to hold government in its own right and not be forced into a minority government. And there were some good signs and some average signs in that poll, and I would think Labor will be very conscious of the messages that were behind those numbers.
Yeah, indeed. And for Peter Dutton as well, I think it's fair to say some good signs, some concerning signs there too for him and the coalition. And one thing that you always say to Michael, and one of the many good points that you make in politics, is that you've got to have a vision. You can't just be against everything. You've got to also have a vision. Are they fleshing that out enough, do you think, the coalition right now?
No, not at the minute, and that goes for the state Liberal parties as well. KG, as I keep saying, people have got to believe their best days are ahead of them, and that's the way you win votes. And the only way you convince people their best days are ahead of them is if you convince them that things are going to change under you. If you're just offering the status quo, well, no one thinks their life's going to get better. You're not offering any proof their life's going to get better, so they won't vote for you. So the role of any opposition and government, but particularly in opposition, is to show people why things will improve under you, why you should vote for us. Your best days will be ahead of you under a Liberal government in Dutton's case. So he has to show why in 3 or 4 really important areas life will improve under you. And the problem a lot of Liberal oppositions with a lot of Liberal oppositions over the years is they have this policy of waiting for 2 years before an election and then spitting out a whole lot of policies on the Gazette or a few months before the election and expect the public to consume and be convinced by those policies. The one thing Dutton has done very well that many others haven't done, he's defining himself. He defined himself by having the courage to be against the voice. We know what happened there. He's defining himself by saying, I'm for nuclear, another big issue. So Dutton has started to define himself, but the question is, are they vote-winning issues for the election at the end of this year, early next year? I'd say they're probably not to the extent we need, because cost of living is the number one and the only issue facing Australians today. So in the next few months, find some cost of living issues, get onto those, because that's what will draw you into the chance of getting a majority of the seats in the reps, and then a chance of being in most likely minority government.
That's the number one, 2 and 3. Michael, Stephen, great to chat as always. See you next week.
Thanks, mate.
Next week.